In London during the 1990s, there was a huge growth of commercial galleries. During, I guess, 1990s and also the noughties, London went from having maybe a dozen commercial art galleries to over 250. So that's massive growth. But there hasn't been the growth and development of private museums in the UK as there has in China. There are probably still only 3 or 4 large-scale privately owned museums in the UK. But I actually think the development of so many private museums in China and Asia particularly is a great thing. It actually means that there's the opportunity to develop a network of organisations worldwide that can move and work together at a different speed than the public museums. The public museums quite rightly have to do a lot more by committee. They're playing with taxpayers' money. They have to think far more about their acquisition policy. And because of that, they have to plan far further in advance. So quite often they've got their exhibition calendars planned out 3 or 4 years ahead. Great opportunity if you have a network worldwide, whether it be in Europe, America, Australia, Asia, is that you've got a group of galleries that can work together on a much more short time scale. So if there's an exhibition that the U Museum or Rockbun likes at the Saatchi Gallery or vice versa, there's an opportunity there to actually have a turnaround within 6 to 9 months rather than 2 to 3 years, because quite often the speed at which these organisations are working doesn't actually make that feasible or compatible. I think an interesting development is that whole idea of how one keeps diversity with such a large number of private museums. I think you just mentioned in your question that there's an issue in China that quite a lot of the same collectors are chasing the same artists, and therefore it's the same small pool of artists that are getting their work shown. And I think that there's greater opportunity there, because obviously something that I've alluded to today when I spoke here is that there's a fantastic opportunity to actually see work now be as and when it's being made in all 7 world continents because of developments and inroads in information technology. I'm not saying for a moment that seeing work on a screen replaces the experience of seeing work in the flesh, but it's a fantastic filter, and it gives you the opportunity to see work being made in Seoul, Jakarta, Kuala Lumpur, Berlin, London, Beijing, Shanghai, Reykjavik, Moscow, in completely the same time frame. So there's no reason anymore why people should be only showing the same artists. The joy is that there's an international pool of artists. All these artists need their work to be shown, and as cultural institutions, I think it's our responsibility, whether privately or publicly owned, to actually give the public a real insight into the breadth of and diversity, particularly in contemporary art, that exists today. What the Saatchi Gallery does is about educating our audience. Education is hugely important to us. We attract over 2,000 school groups a year, and what we actually do through that is that we really engage those schools. We've done something for the last, I think nearly the last decade, called the Saatchi Gallery Art Prize for Schools. And last year we had over 22,000 entries from 56 different countries. So it's a global prize that students can apply for, and the lovely thing about that is that it gives them the opportunity to actually have their own work seen in the Saatchi Gallery. And as part of that, part of our exhibitions is that we have workshops and outreach. So not only students coming into the gallery to work with artists, but then also artists and people involved with our education program actually going out to those schools, particularly schools in challenging areas, challenging environments that might not necessarily be able to access the facilities that we've got at the gallery that easily. So that's an important strand of it. But also remember as well, huge important aspect as well is adult education, talks, making the gallery accessible for people with disabilities and special needs, so that there's a real opportunity for a wider population and audience to get involved with what the Saatchi Gallery does. And that can also be sometimes actually doing exchange exhibitions. For example, last year we did an exhibition called UK Rain, and that was actually an open competition for artists both in the UK and Ukraine that had been out of art college, I think, for less than 5 years. So the whole point of that is you've got two groups of artists working in completely different social circumstances, but actually giving them the opportunity to actually show their work together, exchange ideas, but then also give our viewing audience the opportunity to recognise the differences and the different challenges that are faced by artists living and working in different environments.
关注全球艺术资讯，随手掌握行业动态。扫描左侧二维码，关注99艺术网官方 APP。扫描左侧二维码，关注99艺术网官方微信。